Okay, we are ready to start. I think some of you might know me, but if it's the first time we see each other, let me just briefly introduce myself. I'm Magda, and I'm STANAG, SLP, and J4T teacher. And I have 13 years of teaching experience in total. I'm 33. And the last 6 are focused on NATO exams preparation exclusively. So so far I have worked with members of the armed forces from 11 NATO countries, and I have helped hundreds of students pass their STANAG exams. I'm also the ebook author, digital product, and course creator, because that's what I do for fun as well. I like being creative and creating some digital products. I'm going to show you 2 paths, depending on when your exam date is. You can choose path 1 or path 2, depending what resonates more with your situation. I'll show you some routines to implement, some actionable steps. And we're going to answer some questions like whether self-studying is for you, or do you need a teacher or other form of support? And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So I already had some questions submitted by a few people who cannot come today, but they wanted me to answer those questions. But if you have any questions, if something comes up during the webinar, let me know. Okay? And I will try to answer those questions at the end. Okay, so let's start with those paths. Path number 1 is the summer intensive. Okay, so this is your path if your exam is in the autumn or even at the end of the summer, right? So this is definitely path 1. But, okay, I know, Ricardo, that's you, right? Like you're on path 1. But path 2 is for people who don't have the exam date yet, or maybe you know already that your exam is next year, or you're just here because you want to keep your English active over the summer and you wanted to learn a couple of strategies, maybe some inspiration, motivation on how to do it. Okay, that's perfectly fine. That means that you're on path 2. So we're going to discuss both of them, starting with the blue one, path 1, and what it actually involves. Okay, let me know in the chat if you have already identified which one you are, path 1 or path 2, or none of them. If none of them applies, Ricardo, yeah, path 1, definitely. Is there anyone else who is on path 1, like the exam date, Vero, path 2? Right. Okay. I hope both of you will find something useful here. I was trying to come up with some tangible, specific tools that you can use, not just like a fluff, but like some specific tools. And again, you can combine the paths. First, be on path 2 if your exam date is still far away from here. And when the exam date is closer, you can switch to path 1. It does not only apply in the summer, it also applies in other time of the year. I like to call it summer intensive. Okay, so just simplifying it, we're going to dive deeper, but if you want to keep it simple, that will be it. On path 1, what we're going to focus on will be study routines, mock exams, and exam skills practice, daily reading and listening, active practice, and feedback on your productive skills. All of those elements need to be present if you're preparing for the exam, and the exam is really soon. On path 2, if you're chilling, summer chill, it would be good to incorporate English in a fun way into your daily routine. For example, reading in English for pleasure, watching films and series, listening to podcasts. I'm going to recommend a few listening apps as well. Speaking English on holiday, that will be also a thing, and also tourism in your own city and around it, and how to do it while using English. So a few inspirations for you. Path 1, right. Creating a study routine. Okay, that's a big one, right? So whether it's a morning or afternoon routine, depending on your timetable, and actually the options that you have. If you're on a holiday, of course, you're more flexible. If you're working in the summer, you have to decide what is the path that you can follow. So setting systems and tracking your progress will be the key here. Okay, so you need to decide what you're going to work on. And this will be quite individual, right? Like depends on what you identify as your areas of improvement. Usually we're quite self-aware. Like we know that I need to do more writing, I need to improve my listening skills. Students usually have this self-awareness, but just choosing a goal of reading in English is not specific enough. It would be better to specify it with some specific actions that we're going to take and how. For example, I will read 3 articles per day and take notes with useful vocabulary. And I will record myself summarizing the articles. That is something way more specific. You know exactly what you have to do, because reading in English is just too vague. Okay, and it's an intensive path, right? You're supposed to do very specific things, taking specific actions. It's not going to work if you just say reading in English. Right, I wanted to recommend a book that I personally love. And it's for you, whether you're studying languages or doing sports, or you just want to implement some habits in your everyday life. Atomic Habits. I don't know if any of you here knows this book, but it's fantastic. And read it in English because it's not so difficult to read it in English. And it can really help you implement some habits in your life, or break some bad habits, or to implement some good ones. It's fantastic. And something else that you can do when it comes to those study routines that will be very individual is using habit trackers. Habit trackers are great because they keep us motivated, right? Whatever keeps us motivated, great. It's one of the strategies that is also recommended in the book. So with habit trackers, you have different options. If you're a traditional, you like doing it like in a handwritten form in a notebook, great. If you like printing those and just like ticking them off, great. But remember to personalize this part. Okay, don't just take a ready-made habit planner. Specify it according to your needs. Okay, so specific actions that you're going to take and how often. For example, I'm going to read 3 articles per day, right? Like, but maybe not every day. Maybe you decide to do it every second day, right? That's fine. And then this is to make sure that there is an accountability element in it. Okay, so if you can have an accountability buddy, another person who's doing the same thing, like a gym buddy, if you go together to the gym, know that this other person also has the same goal, that would help as well. So if you have a friend doing something similar, great. Those of us who like the digital version of habit trackers, for example, Notion provides some. You can create this kind of habit trackers for yourself. I'm not a fan, but a lot of people love doing using this kind of tools. I prefer the paper version always. And you can also use an app, right, to keep the track of the habits. Okay, so tracking your habits, your progress, it's a really useful tool to implement in the summer intensive. Number 2, mock exams and exam skills practice. You need to make sure that you know exam specifics, types of tasks, time that you have to complete certain tasks, how many times you're going to hear a listening, for example, if it's just once or twice, and you need to practice. Okay, so it's not enough just immersing yourself in English, exposing yourself to English. No, you need to also get used to the exam format. I know that the big problem in this field, like in the NATO exams, is no access to materials, right? So sometimes you have to ask someone to help you. It's either like a platform that is protected, or just there are no materials right now. That's why you have me. You can write to me and ask me for those, and I'll be happy to help. And it will be good to combine these real life tasks with the exam training. Okay, so making sure that you cover both. Not just exam training, right? Because if you just keep doing mock exams, it's going to be a little bit boring, right? Make sure that you do both. I have created some digital practice materials. So if you're interested in that, on my website in the study room, you have master classes that are focused on some specific skills. For example, how to improve your exam reading score, how to take your SLP writing from 2+ to 3, and also the listening booster. So like all-time favorite to practice your listening skills with all of the explanations, like why, if you made a mistake, like why, with the explanation. So that's something that I think is necessary if you're self-studying, like to know why you made a mistake. Right? There needs to be an explanation. Because otherwise we cannot learn from those mistakes. Like if you just made a mistake, but you still don't know why, we don't learn a lesson from that. And as I said, if you need access to some tests and mock exams, send me an email, okay? And we'll talk about it. Number 3, create a summer immersion experience. Okay, that sounds like some kind of exchange abroad, but no, create it at home, like in your town, with your daily reading and listening. You need to get a little bit obsessed with surrounding yourself with English as much as you can. Okay, so you need to get a little bit crazy with that. I mean, your family needs to notice that you have this obsession. Okay, if you don't know what to read or listen to, you can find this resources list on my website. I added it recently. So yeah, on the website in the study room, you go to the resources list and you will get a lot of listening recommendations of podcasts, also what to read, divided according to different levels. Okay, so if you don't know where to start, that's a good point to start. Active practice, productive skills. So productive skills means speaking and writing. So you actually need to use English. You cannot just study how to write reports or how to prepare for the speaking exam. You need to practice. Okay, like it's not going to happen otherwise. So how can you do it? Well, you have a few options. You can try to do it alone, sure. You can record yourself. You can write a journal. There are a few things that you can be doing by yourself. You can find a speaking partner, whether it's face-to-face or online, and practice speaking with this person. You can do it with a group, whether it's a language exchange, some tandems. Some cities organize these language tandems. It was very popular before the pandemic, but I think now they're coming back. Maybe you have some English-speaking friends that you can talk to. Fine. You can also do it with a teacher who's specialized in the exam prep. But something that is very important here is that make sure that you receive feedback. Okay, you need to know what you need to improve, because otherwise, like you will just keep speaking, but you're not going to improve or grow because nobody will give you any feedback. That's the thing sometimes with English-speaking friends, right? Like that maybe we work with some, we have some colleagues who speak English and they feel uncomfortable correcting us, right? Like they don't want to do it. And that's pretty understandable. Or if it's a speaking partner online, sometimes they also don't feel comfortable correcting you, or maybe they have a lower level than you and you don't even realize that you made a mistake. Okay, so there are certain things that you can do, but know like what kind of expectations you may have. Okay, active practice when it comes to receptive skills, so listening and reading. The trick here is to try to transform your passive listening or passive reading exercises into active ones. Passive ones mean that you just read and you don't do anything with it. Okay, like you read an article or you listen to a podcast, even sometimes multitasking, doing 5 other things in the meantime. Not the best idea to do it, because it's way more effective to convert an exercise into an active exercise rather than just passively listening and listening. How can you do it? Transcribing is one of those exercises that I torture my students with. Right? Initially, like everybody hates this exercise because it's really challenging, but it's one of the exercises that can help them grow the most and improve their listening skills. So if listening is something that you're struggling with, transcribing. You can find some speeches online with the transcript. You can try to transcribe what is said there. I would recommend to start with some speeches, for example, of politicians in the British Parliament, because they pause. There's some moments when there's some background noises as well, so you have a little bit more time to transcribe. Of course, you can listen to it multiple times. Okay, the idea here is to connect the sound and the word, which sometimes we know the word, but we don't recognize it when we hear it. Okay, this exercise helps with that. I love it. Summarizing. This one helps us process information in English. Okay, so to think in English about what we just read or we listened to. You can make a short audio written summary of the article that you have just read or a podcast that you listened. Okay, so even if it was a passive exercise, by adding this active element, you make it active. Shadowing. Okay, this one is fun. This one is especially useful if you want to improve your pronunciation, intonation, rhythm. So you can repeat after a speaker that you're listening to. You basically become a shadow of a person. Okay, so you repeat just after them. There are a few useful videos on YouTube on how to do shadowing exercise by Hadar Shemesh. So I recommend those videos. She shows you step by step how to do this. And if you want to dive deeper into active listening strategies, I also have a masterclass about this topic with some specific exercises, including transcription. So I just wanted to let you know that there is such an option. Right, so that will be all. That sounds like not a lot, but that's a lot, like when it comes to the summer intensive part. Okay, so in a nutshell, so summarizing. Regular study routines, tests and mock exams, active practice, and feedback. Okay, those 4 elements need to be present if you're preparing for the exam, if it's in the autumn. Okay. However, if that was not your case, if you're just chilling this summer, but you want to have your English active, this is the path number 2, summer chill. Let's dive a little bit deeper into what is involved in summer chill path. So first of all, reading in English for pleasure, enjoying English. The goal of this path is just to have fun in English, to build your knowledge, to have this enjoyable experience, but in a relaxed atmosphere. If you can do it, if you can afford that, to do it in a relaxed way, do it. Okay? Reading your favorite book in English is a great idea for the summer. If you're lying on the beach or by the pool, whether it's Harry Potter or some other book that you loved as a child, or reading it in English would be a great experience. Also, reading a book that you already know in your native language might be a good idea if you're just starting with reading books in English. Still, I think for the exam preparation, it makes more sense to read articles, but yeah, we're on the summer chill path. So yeah, reading a book by the pool sounds like a great idea for the summer. Reading geopolitical books in English and starting building your knowledge for the future level 3 and 4 exam. So if your goal is level 3 and level 4, summer is also a good month to start reading some geopolitical books. You don't have to become a geopolitical expert, but that's a good direction to go. So again, on my website, in the resources list, you will find some recommendations of the books that I recommend to read for level 3 and 4. I also recorded a YouTube video dedicated to that. Okay, another idea of what you can do. When was the last time that you actually bought a paper magazine or a newspaper in English? Probably 20 years ago. Usually you can find them at the airports, like this National Geographic in English or other magazines. I used to buy them a lot, like years ago. That might be also a great experience to have, like buying the paper magazine and reading it and touching it. And some of us are very old-fashioned and we like to touch the paper. So it sounds kind of like a romanticizing reading for the summer. But reading in English for pleasure, a couple of ideas. Yeah, that's the video that I was talking about geopolitical books. And this is the part from my website with the geopolitical books. they're the same books. So do you prefer to watch the video or just to check the website? They're there. Okay. Other ideas where you can find books in English. You can use those Macmillan readers. They're usually simplified versions of some classics. Something that I found particularly useful is, I don't know if you guys know this app, Vinted. It's for buying clothes, but not only, you can actually buy secondhand books there. And I bought a lot of books there. They're way cheaper than buying new books. So you can always check if somebody is selling your book there. And actually there are a lot of books in English there as well. So not just in your native language. Give it a try, because you can actually save a lot of money buying it secondhand. Number 2, watching films in English and TV series. We think about it. So when it comes to films and TV series, again, we're summer chilling. Be selective and strategic with what you watch. Okay, even if we're in this mode, still choose the series that can teach you either everyday vocabulary or vocabulary related to exam topics. So have that in mind, but be selective. So a few TV series to watch. Again, like feel free to recommend some other. But after the ones that I watched, I found this one's particularly useful. Black Mirror. Because it touches upon the topics of technology, futurism, social media. These kind of topics appear quite a lot in the level 3 exam. This Is Us. This is a lovely TV series. You can learn a lot of vocabulary related to family, relationships, everyday life, always useful. Okay, and English there is not that like slang or very like jargon specific as it is sometimes in those TV series that focus on certain groups, like the Big Bang Theory, scientists, or some about doctors or lawyers. Sometimes they use a lot of jargon. This one is very neutral. And films. Again, here you have a lot to choose. So I would do both like military films and other kind of films. So military, just the classics like Black Hawk Down, Your Soldiers, Saving Private Ryan, and many others, whatever you enjoy watching, if you do. And some other would be the ones that touch upon the topics, potentially might be interesting for you to build both knowledge and vocabulary for the future exam. So I found this one particularly useful, Darkest Hour, which is about Winston Churchill. So we can learn a lot about leadership and a little bit about history, right? Like of what kind of leader he was, like what kind of decisions he needed to make. So 2 in 1. And we can learn something and we focus the vocabulary on the leadership. And then when you watch a movie, you could, for example, record yourself summarizing the movie or write a movie review, right? So you can always follow up with some interesting and stimulating exercises, making it active. I don't know if you know this Google Chrome extension, but you can actually watch Netflix in 2 languages. That's only possible on the desktop, as far as I know, so not on the phone, unless they change that, but it's called Language Reactor. So you can watch it in 2 languages. For example, like here, you can see that it's in Spanish and in English. You can also click on some words, check the meaning. So it's pretty useful. Yeah, I don't know if you have already used this extension, but yeah, if it can be a helpful one. Okay, number 3, listening to podcasts in English. And podcasts are perfect for the summer because you can listen to them while you're on holiday, while you're driving somewhere to your holiday destination, you're lying on the beach, right? Or you're on a train, you want to keep yourself busy or entertain yourself. They're just perfect to fit in your summer schedule and everyday life. So podcasts to listen for fun, that will depend on your interests, okay? So summer is a good time to explore and discover podcasts that you might be interested in. If you have any recommendations, feel free to share them in the comments, okay? But as I said, the ones that you listen for fun, each of us is interested in something a little bit different. So what might be fun for me might not be fun for you. However, I can recommend some, but the ones for fun are important because they keep us also motivated to listen in English. Okay, so maybe we're not so passionate about podcasts on geopolitics, but we are passionate about podcasts about science or fashion or whatever it is, right? So then if it keeps us motivated to listen in English, that's fantastic. Okay, not everything has to be like exam focused. But if you're looking for some podcasts to listen to with the future exam in mind, I'm going to recommend two. You have more on my website in the resources list. Simple English News Daily, that's for lower levels, and Radio Sit Rep for higher levels. Okay, both of them, I heard from my students that are fantastic. You're going to love them for sure. Yeah, I decided instead of bombarding you with tons of recommendations that you're never going to use, I will give you two and give them a try. With the apps, I used to have like a problem with the apps because I didn't find them really useful in the process of learning a language. I think it's because I was used to the kind of apps like Duolingo that are usually useful if you're starting to learn a new language, but not that great if you're a bit more advanced in language. The sentences are a bit artificial and just not a fan. But recently I have discovered some apps that I actually find enjoyable. So if you're on the summer chill path, write a comment in the chat, a good podcast on Spotify. I think it doesn't matter if it's Spotify, Google Podcast, iTunes, or whatever is the platform. Because most of the podcasts are present on all of those platforms. So the idea is finding the right one for you. So Ricardo, if we talk, it was Ricardo who asked the question, right? Oh, yeah. So when it comes to the exam preparation, which is your case, your exam is close, use the ones in the second part that I recommended. Okay, so they're better for you. And also check my website with recommendations. The ones for fun, the way I find the podcast that I enjoy listening to for fun, I use Google Podcasts. I write some keywords of what I'm interested in. For example, psychology, right? So I write some keywords, psychology, relationships, for example, and then it's showing me some episodes of podcasts that touch on it. So I give them a try, I test them. If I like it, I keep listening. If I don't, I just try another one. So that's how I select them. And when it comes to exam preparation, you already have them pre-selected by me. Going back to the listening apps. Wanna Listen, Cake, and Woodpecker were the apps that I have tested in the last few months because I decided, okay, let's test a couple of apps, and I prepared a YouTube video on it that is coming this month. And they usually take some parts like of some TV series with very useful expressions that are being used there, and they challenge you to understand those expressions like in context. They're great. They're a lot of fun. Okay, so don't miss the video that I will publish on 5 listening apps that I recommend, because I show more examples of how they work. Or just download them and give them a try. But all of them work in a similar way. Okay, so authentic conversations, something taken already from authentic movie or TV series conversations. Really good ones. And yeah, this summer you have time to explore that. Okay, let's talk about speaking English on holiday. So if you're going abroad this summer, never miss a chance to use English on holidays. Even if you go just behind the border, like just exploring a little bit, it doesn't have to be like a big trip. It's like exam role plays, but in real life. In a lot of exams, we have this part of role plays. So going on holidays abroad gives you a chance to live those role plays, but in real life. Okay, so hotel conversations with a receptionist, airport conversation with the cabin crew, local guides. So if you're booking a tour, you're sightseeing in English, sport instructors, and they explain how to surf, right? Like, or how to use certain sport equipment if you're like to do sport on holiday or try some new sports. shop assistants and street sellers, okay? Lifeguard in the pool. Restaurants, ordering food in English, talking to the waiter, the bartender, making friends with other travelers. Honestly, most of those situations are like 80% of all the role plays that I see on the exam. Okay, so you can actually test yourself in the real life. Okay? Maybe it sounds a bit more scary, but it's also a very natural context to do it, right? Then on the exam, you will feel more confident actually acting it out because your brain will think like, wait a second, this sounds familiar. I've already done that. Yeah, so going on holiday abroad gives you endless opportunities to practice English. It doesn't have to be an English-speaking country, right? Like it can be Portugal, it can be Germany, right? Like it can be a country that is not, it does not speak English as native language, right? So you don't only have to speak to native speakers to practice your English. And you have this natural context. It also helps to build your confidence. Okay, yes, I'm able to do it. Okay, I'm able to survive in those situations. Okay, so especially if you're at lower levels, like level 1, level 2, and you need this boost of confidence, that's a great opportunity to do it. But if you don't go abroad this summer, you can still become a tourist in your city. Sounds like a teenage adventure idea, but it's not. Okay, so if you're planning to stay home, it's called like a staycation, by the way. I'm sure that tourists are coming to your town anyway, so you can kind of become one of them and look at your city from a little bit different perspective, like with the tourist eyes. Think about all of the opportunities that you have. Museum tours in English, okay? So you can actually visit museums in your city with the guide, with the English-speaking guide. It's fantastic. Something that I did, I live in Spain, but so sometimes I do the tours in Spanish, sometimes I do them in English, like whatever I feel like in a given moment. So I use this app, Spain Heritage Network. You have to scan it, and you were downloading all of these audio guides of different castles in Spain. So I was visiting a castle near Madrid with the audio guide in English. It was great. Okay. So yeah, this is the name of it, Spain Heritage Network. But I'm sure that you can find many others, or you can book a tour with the audio guide in English. Free city tours. Okay, a lot of cities organize that, and it's usually for tourists, so it's in English. Usually at the end of this tour, you have to tip a person, so it's not technically free, like you're expected to tip at the end, but that's fine. Language tandems or trivia games in bars, that's also organized mostly in bigger cities. And pub crawl parties, right? That's something that it's basically like drinking with other tourists and speaking English. Again, very popular, especially in Prague, but also in other cities. And so that you can always join. Okay, that will be part 2, all of the ideas of how you can keep your English active over the summer, things that you can do in the summer. And now, this is the question I think that I already answered at the beginning. Can you first follow path 2, the summer chill, and then switch into path 1 when your exam date is coming? Sure. I would even say that it's a very good idea, like to always be in the summer chill, whether it's autumn chill, winter chill, like mode, always keep your English active. And when the exam date is coming, switch into more intense path. Okay. Right, let's answer this question. Is self-studying for you, or do you need a teacher? Maybe you're wondering whether you need a teacher or you can study on your own. Let's answer this question. Of course, favorite answer, it depends. Okay, so it's very individual. There's no one good answer to it. It depends on the person. Some people are really good at self-studying, and throughout their education, they have learned how to study effectively on their own. Great. What you need if you're studying on your own is discipline and motivation. Okay? You need to make sure that you're disciplined enough and you have this intrinsic, internal motivation to keep going forward. Okay? That's also the last part. You need to know your why you're doing it. What is your clear goal? Because otherwise it's not so easy to stay motivated. And I see a lot of similarities between learning a language and doing sport or exercising in the gym. Because you need to keep going, you need to keep practicing, exercising the muscles. So here we also exercise the language muscles, right? Some people will need a personal trainer to push them. Other people won't need that. And it's the same with English. Some people will need a teacher to push them, other people will not. The benefit of having a personal trainer or a teacher is that this person shows you how to do certain activities more effectively, correctly as well, whether your posture is correct, whether you're doing things correctly, and how to achieve better results. Okay, that's the goal. And this person also gives you feedback, okay, corrects your mistakes, okay, language mistakes, posture mistakes, a lot of similarities there. Okay, so that's the job of both the personal trainer and a language teacher. So then it's up to you to decide what you feel more comfortable doing. And if you decide that you need a teacher, support, or individual lessons, I have a few options to offer you. You can start working with me one-to-one on the basis of individual classes. It could be long or short-term collaboration. This one is a good choice if you're planning to take the exam in 6 months to 1 year. Okay, so you have a bit more time to prepare. However, if your exam is coming, if you're on path 1, the exam reinforcement classes are a better option for you, because you have 6 intensive hours of exam training with me. And of course, it's individual, so it's tailored to your needs, and feedback is necessary to improve because we don't know what we don't know. Okay? If you prefer group classes and the interaction, the international group vibe, if that's something that you're definitely in, I run international group classes regularly. So next one starts in the autumn, usually in September or October. And if you would like to make sure that you get your spot in such group, they usually last around 3 months, 12 weeks. Yeah, you can book your spot because I only have 4 spots in each group, like for level 2 and for level 3. So I just wanted to let you know what are the options, what's going on in my world. If you're interested in being there, you're always very welcome. Okay, and it's time for questions. So I know I went really fast. Sometimes when I get nervous, I speed up a lot, and I know it happens to some of you as well. Let me know what was your biggest takeaway from today's webinar. What kind of tip you're going to try, maybe a tool that you saw and you thought like, yeah, I might give it a try. If there is at least one thing that you take away from this webinar, I would be really happy, right? Because very often we consume content, we just consume and consume. We have this tendency to overconsumption, and then we don't implement anything. Okay, so I want you to implement at least one thing from today. So if you feel like sharing in the chat, you can let me know what is your takeaway, what you're going to implement. I would love to hear that. In the meantime, if you have any other questions that you would like me to answer, here I am, and I will answer them first as a priority. Then I also, as I said, I have some questions submitted by the people who couldn't be here live, but they still wanted me to cover those questions, as I will be sending the replay to everybody who registered, but they couldn't make it live. So if something comes up, feel free. Okay, some comment. I hope that with your support, I will feel that I will improve my English. Yes. Let's do it, Ricardo. The opportunity to hear from someone who has a great experience on the field. Thank you, Jean. Jean, right. Yeah, I hope that I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So thank you very much. I'm always happy to share like what I know. And I was really missing running those live events because I haven't done it for a while. And I felt that I missed this live interaction with people outside of my groups, that I also want to talk to people who are not in my world that much, but to hear from you. So thanks a lot for those comments. If some questions comes up, let me know. In the meantime, I will be answering the questions that other people submitted. So the first question was, how can I improve my speaking skills in English over the summer when I don't have many opportunities to practice with native speakers? Okay. One thing about this question that really drew my attention. This person assumed that practicing speaking needs to happen with native speakers, and this is not true. Okay? You do not only improve when you speak with native speakers. You can improve a lot speaking to non-native speakers. And I saw that happening in the military speaking club that I ran last year. Last year, or was it this year? I think it was last year. I saw people come from many different countries talking about the topics that matter to them, improving their speaking skills. So it's not only that the only speaking to natives will help you to improve your speaking. No. Summer is a great time to give yourself a chance to try something new. I think I gave you some ideas of what you can do when you're traveling or if you're staying in your hometown. But honestly, sky's the limit, right? Like you can find a lot of other opportunities too, what you can do, who you can talk, because this person is talking about speaking skills, right? So you need to talk to people, right? You need to find people, and the best way would be to find them face to face, right? So all of those pub crawl experiences, what else? Tandems, pub quizzes, gives you an opportunity to meet people. Okay, so I would definitely go for that. Or even doing those museum tours gives you a chance to ask questions, right? So you can practice asking questions as well. So definitely, we do not only improve by speaking to natives, so don't forget that. Are there any tips for building vocabulary and expanding my knowledge of idioms? Right, so I have the whole YouTube video about learning vocabulary. I think even 2 videos. So you can find 2 videos on my channel, the second video ever that I published, and also STANAG vocabulary video. In those videos, I share a couple of tools that you can use, especially the vocabulary planner. Okay? So vocabulary planner is basically a tool where you plan what words you're going to use more often in a given month. So you're being very intentional about it. Okay? Check those videos to see the examples of that. Using Youglish, this is where you can see how those words are used in context. Okay? Let me write it down in the chat. English. Okay. What else? This person is asking about expanding my knowledge of idioms. And I think idioms might not be necessarily the best use of your time, because idioms very often are very regional. So some idioms that work, for example, in the US wouldn't land the same like in the UK. And very often they are very context specific to a certain culture. Some cultures would use them more, others would use them less. I think a better use of your time is learning collocations instead. Okay? So there's this fantastic book, English Collocations in Use. I think it's one of the best books that you can use, especially if you're somewhere in this messy middle between level 2 and level 3. Very often the gap between level 2 and level 3 is learning collocations. Okay, so I would move towards learning collocations instead of focusing on idioms that are not used as often as collocations. Okay? Just to make it clear, like collocations are this type of expressions that is usually a verb and noun that go together. For example, a very common collocation mistake is to say to do a party or to make a party, and because it's translating from a person's native language. Right, the natural collocation is to throw a party, to have a party. Right, these are the verbs that would be used with it. Okay, so very useful expressions. Start with the ones with make, with do, with give, with have. Okay, and then keep exploring. Okay. Are there any particular grammar topics that are commonly challenging for Italian students? How can I overcome those challenges? So I've worked quite a lot with Italian students, and I've noticed that one of the biggest grammar topics or grammar issue is copying the structure from Italian. Okay, so copying the whole sentence structure from Italian and just translating the words into English. So we have to remember that languages are systems, that they just don't work in this way, that we just translate word by word and it's going to be correct, right? Like the sentence structure in English might be a bit different than the one in Italian, and we need to keep that in mind. So the way we can become a bit more aware of the natural sentence structure in English is by paying attention when we read something, right? Like we think, okay, in Italian, we would say it in a different order. We would change that, okay? Or, oh, we don't have an expression like this in Italian. Okay, so paying attention to those differences, contrasting it a bit. When it comes to some specific grammar issues that Italian speakers struggle with, I think it's gerund and infinitive, prepositions, definitely, especially when we talk about prepositions of movement, like instead of saying moving to or going to a place, they would use in instead. So I think the prepositions are really challenging for Italians. Prepositions are somewhere on the verge of vocabulary and grammar, so I'm including them there. So yeah, I think that would be it. Or maybe a little bit with present perfect too, like expressing certain ideas, like I have lived here for 3 years, right? Sometimes they would use present tense, like present simple tense instead of present perfect. But these are the most common types of mistakes. Could you suggest some fun and engaging activities or games that can help make learning English more enjoyable during the summer? Okay, so I was thinking about this one. And again, my tip would be the same. Find some activities happening in your city. There are some cafes that are like board games cafes, like where you can play some board games. Sometimes it's in your native language, sometimes you can play in English. Bar quizzes, going to the cinema, like and watching a film in English, that might be also an option. Sometimes you may need to go to a special cinema that plays movies in the original version, if it's a common practice in your country to dub the movies, but you can find those cinemas as well. Starting a new hobby in English, right? For example, gardening, right? And learning more about this hobby by watching YouTube tutorials, YouTube videos about it, learning new things in English. Okay, this is very motivating when you learn a new skill in English. It could be also a skill that is compatible with your work as well. For example, public speaking course, right? Like learning to speak in public might be something that you find useful for your work. Okay? What else? Yeah, I think that will be it. I think, I don't know if there are really games, like, I mean, there are board games and so on that we can play, but these are the ones that came to my mind. Whatever you enjoy, you will find it engaging. Okay, so you need to actually have fun. Okay, and that's the last one that I had from the submitted questions. I'm an English teacher, but I want to become a military English teacher. I will be grateful for any recommendations. Okay, I received quite a few of this type of questions, and I'm going to run a training course for teachers in the future. So if you're interested in that, send me a message. Okay, and there's a whole application process to do that. So if you're interested, let me know. But I know most of you here are not present for that. So I think that's it when it comes to questions. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, that's a good moment to ask them in the chat. I'll stay for a moment to answer them. Also, feel free to send me questions via email, right? You can always do that. Okay, I answer all my emails, at least I try. So feel free to do it. If something comes up after the class, if you want to clarify something, feel free to do it. If you don't have any questions, I'll be wrapping up for today. So thank you very much for coming, for spending this time with me today. I wish you a wonderful summer. Whether you're doing Path 1, which is going to be a lot of work, Ricardo, right? And whether you're doing Path 2, Veronica, right? Then just enjoying English this summer. Make sure that English is present there. Okay, so wishing you a wonderful summer. And if you need anything, you know where to find me. I'm here. Something in the chat. Thank you, Magda. Thank you for being here and always being very supportive. Thank you, Ricardo. All right, so this is it for today. Sending you guys hugs and see you around. I'll contact you after this webinar. Okay, we keep in touch. Right, bye. Thanks a lot.